Hi there, friends. Welcome to another episode of the Franki 411 podcast. I'm your host, Haleigh 𝓕𝓻𝓪𝓷𝓴𝓲. This episode, I sit down with Andie Johnson. Andie is a spiritual teacher and energy worker and also does energy healing and Reiki. And she is also one of my favorite new content creators on Instagram. She blends spirituality with comedy in a way that I very much enjoy. I do hope you enjoy this episode.
Are you ready?
I'm ready if you are.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, welcome everyone to another episode of the Franki 411 podcast. I'm your host, Haleigh, and here I have Andie Johnson, who is one of my newest, most favoritist content creators on Instagram. I just love your stuff so very much. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for the compliments.
I love it. I think it's great. And so I'll go ahead and give your introduction to you, if you will, for the audience.
Yeah. So I'm Andie Johnson. I live in Springfield, Missouri, so from the Ozarks. So my Instagram is dedicated just for energy work, inspiration, just spreading good vibes and conscious expansion. So I do a lot of energy work with clients as far as like Reiki, emotion code. We do BQH, which is beyond quantum healing hypnosis. So anything to do with energy healing and just giving the power back to the individual and conscious expansion. So that's kind of what my passion is and my work is and my mission of just bringing healing back to the individual through reminding them of who they truly are. So
I love this.
that's what my Instagram is dedicated to. And I find that I enjoy creating just funny content because it's healing for me, but it also makes light of the situation of it's just, you know, if you want to call it shadow work or, you know, the heavy healing stuff like that, it just kind of brings light to it and kind of spins it in a funny way that people can kind of, you know, laugh at themselves. So
that's what I really like about it. I really love that you incorporate, because that's really what I want to do with this whole, I mean, I don't necessarily do the coaching energy work angle, right? Like I am a writer and I do more of I like the idea of bringing these concepts to people in a fictional container that's maybe easier for people to swallow. Right. Yes. But I love that the comedy element of it, because it does make it so much more approachable for people. Right. Like sometimes the spiritual stuff can be very heavy or can be very sort of intimidating. Right.
Yes.
But there are a lot more people who are looking for it and who are curious about it and who are getting on these spiritual journeys. So I just think it's great that you use comedy, because it is something that's very approachable.
Are you there?
There you are. We had a little bit of a pause. That's all right.
What were you saying? A lot more people were looking for, I think that's what it cut out.
Yeah, no, just that people are looking for, you know, they're looking for this sort of, how do I get on this spiritual journey? How do I work on myself? How do I, you know, become the more joyful, playful creator of my reality, which is exactly where I am and what I'm trying to do, you know, and that's what I really do love is the comedy and the fun. Like, how can I turn all of these things that I'm taking so seriously into something that's more fun?
Exactly. And it's not meant to be hard. And I know that I find a lot, like with the clients that I work with too, and I call it almost like a healing trap, is that if you go on a spiritual journey, and a lot of people, you know, you have to think of what turns you to spirituality. There is something in your life that is not fulfilling or that you're questioning. And a lot of it is most of us, and I know for me, you know, it was my programming. Something was off in my life, and the things that, you know, I had, which were basically, I did start off with my spiritual journey. I used to be Christian, but it wasn't like answering questions that I had about life. It you know, it just didn't feel right and resonate to me. So going on, you know, a spiritual journey, you start focusing on kind of like the shadow work and like the really deep rooted issues that, you know, you've accepted to be true about yourself. And I find that a lot of people, like, they get caught in this trap or this cycle of always thinking that they need to be healing or need to be like doing this deep inner work constantly. And it's, I want to really bring to light that even though that is important, it's not really what, I don't think that should be the focus of it.
Right.
Um, I think that, you know, a spiritual journey, it's a self-discovery journey. And yes, it's really important to shine light on some of those, you know, programmings or those heavy things that maybe you don't like in your life, but they're actually there to show you what is possible for you. So the darkness always, like, you know, there, it brings light, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like you shine light on these darker aspects of yourself, but it's to show you what you do want in life. And when people focus so heavily on just constantly feeling like they need to heal, they get kind of like trapped in this cycle. And it's almost like you have to pull the individual out of that and just be like, hey, these things are not truly who you are. They're like a compass. They are to show you what you don't
Right.
want in life and to show you what is possible and what you actually do want out of your life. So that is kind of like where I take a lot of I don't know, where you can give the power back to the individual, because spiritual journey, I feel like, should be a self-discovery and a creative journey. It's supposed to
Right.
be, and us as humans, and it's kind of like the message that I've gotten so many times from just angels, spirit guides, whatever you want to call it, your higher self, is that we take life way too seriously, and it's really easy to get stuck in the muck and the darkness. And honestly, it's life is really what you make it. And so if you just allow those things to empower you, you can really transform your life. So the darkness, like, it's really not bad. And it's really, you know, people think of darkness as heavy and just negative, and they really think their life should be all light and love, but it's just a compass to show you what is possible for you and to really turn that into your power and create the life that you want. So energy is just energy. It's neither right nor wrong. It just is. And we
Mm-hmm.
assign that logic to it, right? So if you can get the individual to actually see how things are working for them and how they are the creator of their life, and really like they are in control of the way they think, act, and feel. And if you can get the perception shifts higher of the way that they view the world and their situation of how it's happening for them, and you can transform that lower level frequency into love, and you can see love in this situation,
Yes.
higher perception shifts, then you can really use that to change your life. And
This
that's what I try to do in my work.
I love that I've connected with you because this is so very much like exactly where I am in my journey. Just this place of my darkness is valuable to me. Like, because, you know, for me, my sort of darkness, my weirdness, the things that have called me to, you know, anything in the spiritual, esoteric, occult realm, right? Like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because I see you've got like the crystals and do the witchy stuff too. And I'm into that. And it's like, there's all these little things you're interested in that, like, I know I've been pulled to my whole life, and I'm the same way. I grew up, you know, with that Christian background, and it just always felt off to me. Like, there was nothing about being in church that made me feel joyful or like, I always felt just bad about myself. And I, you know, it's I'm definitely in that place of I'm trying to, like, again, like you're saying, find the light, find the fun, look at things with love as much as you can, because it's all part of, you know, why we incarnated as humans, so that we could have this experience, and that it would help us to create and expand and find new things about ourselves, right, as the source energy that we really are. And so, like, I do love a lot of that. Here's where we're gonna, you know, I think sometimes a little bit of these podcasts turn into therapy for me to some degree, you
Same.
know, right? But I think that a lot of people are in that space where, okay, I've done a lot of this internal work, right? I've done a lot of the recognizing of the shadow self. How do I flip myself now into that more loving, more playful space with myself first? Because once you get to that place where you understand that the things that you think and feel on a regular basis are what creates your reality,
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of where I am, is when I'm in that emotional state of something that is an old paradigm that I recognize, and I get into these loops of the same things I've done, and it's like I almost get afraid of my thoughts, right? That
Mhm.
like, oh, here I am again doing this thing I don't want to do. What's this going to create for me that I didn't want? And
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I, you know, when you can recognize the patterns, it's it's almost like when you give it attention, when you keep like getting yourself caught in this loop and you shine light on it, you give it attention, and then it's almost like, oh crap, I don't want to keep doing this thing. But the oh crap almost keeps you stuck in that loop and you're feeding it.
right,
So, what I've come to recognize is that when I just accept the way that I am thinking and feeling, even if I don't like it, even if I'm just like, I don't like these thoughts that are going through my head, I don't like the actions that I'm taking, but the more that I don't like the thing and think that I'm doing something wrong, the more that it creates that for me, right?
right.
So, where to pull myself from that, I just honestly accept myself for those thoughts that I'm thinking. I accept myself where I'm at in my life because it is who I am. And this
Mm-hmm.
is part of my journey. And whatever I'm going through, thinking, acting, feeling, it's showing me something about myself. And it's almost just like, well, this is where I'm at. That is okay. But I have faith enough in myself that things are going to get better. Right. So it's like a feeling of self-acceptance and enough faith to know that things are going to improve because you're never stuck. It's an illusion that we're stuck, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it feels real. It should, I've been there before. It feels so real, but it's an illusion. We're never not stuck. We're only as stuck as we really want to be. So I found that when I show myself love and acceptance, it dissipates that resistance
Mm-hmm.
almost, and it frees me from that cycle. It frees me from that loop. It's almost like um it breaks that thought pattern, and then you're able to actually either pull yourself from that situation or you're able to break the resistance and then actually create freely. So it's almost like changing that lower level frequency into love because you're showing yourself love and acceptance in the moment, and you're raising your vibration, bringing you more closer to source, or bringing you back to the rejoining of God or the re-remembering of who you are. And so it frees you of that, and you're allowing God back into your life, and then are able to actually see new things that you can create or to pull you from the darkness per se. So
Mm-hmm.
that's where I found that it has helped me break those thought patterns or just come to like this self-acceptance or to get to those next steps. So if that kind of makes sense.
That makes sense. And that's, I know that it's one of those things, like you said, it's supposed to be easy. It's not supposed to be hard. And it's really only programming and conditioning that we're used to that makes us tell ourselves that it's hard for us to learn to love ourselves. It's hard for us to accept ourselves as we are. It's like
Mm-hmm.
that's just programming and conditioning that we've received that tells us that it's not actually true. And the fact that you feel bad when you think those thoughts is an indicator that it's not true, that like your true self, your source self is absolutely thinking different thoughts about you and is absolutely loving everything you're doing, and I
Mm-hmm.
I think to some extent there is still some of that for me too. And I'm not, you can maybe talk about sort of the way that you view it. I mean, I know I sort of use a lot of terminology that maybe like Esther Hicks would use when she channels Abraham, right? If you're
Oh
familiar with,
yeah. Yeah.
so I think that there's a certain amount of when I sort of visualize it, I visualize myself as like separate as like here's my avatar, Haleigh, right? And I'm separate of my source. And it's like, that's not how it is, right? Like you are your source energy every bit as much as you are this human vessel that you're in right now, this, this player that you're playing, right? This Ready Player One, right?
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Is there work that you do in that realm of sort of helping people to recognize like you are your source? You're not just this human. You are the bigger energy that creates the universe. And you don't like, I think there's something about seeing that as external in some way still, rather than understanding the sort of oneness of it. Does that make sense?
So like I think I kind of get what you're saying as far as like helping the person remember their power, or like
Yeah.
giving that they're more, and it truly just depends on the individual. So as far as whenever I teach or I have energy work clients, you have to meet the individual where they're at currently in their life and in their conscious expansion, because you have to understand that not everybody is ready for the information, nor can
Mm-hmm.
they take it in on the level in which they need to understand it. Not everybody is ready or can even properly understand that they are the source, right? Especially
Mm-hmm.
if somebody's coming to me and they're just getting into spirituality, or they're just rewiring their Christian programming. So it's very hard for them to still actually see that, source is something within them, especially if they are, a Christian programming still trying to work through, as you see
Right.
God as something outside of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always meeting the individual where they're at in their consciousness. Um, so sometimes I can have conversations of where I can talk to somebody and be like, yeah, we're the same consciousness playing a game with itself. And they can see the bigger picture that, they are source energy, as far as where somebody else, they might just be needing their power back and understanding that they are in control of how they think, act, and feel. And they just need to separate themselves from the victim mindset. So it just truly depends upon where the person's at. And you have to understand that everybody's perception of reality is totally different, because we're all different energies as well too. So the information that I'm going to give somebody, they're going to take it in from their own perception of the world,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to hit them where they're at to take them to that next level, to maybe shift their model of reality. So you have to trust and just understand that whenever like I'm in a session with somebody, or I am teaching, whatever it so may be, that what I say, it's going to hit them and they're going to take what they need to get to that next level. So basically you're channeling the entire time that you're doing
Because you have to be
teaching, or yeah,
sort of
you're
connecting
connected.
to their higher self, and okay, where are they
Mm-hmm.
at? What information can they absorb? So
Yeah.
here's something then that maybe is a little bit a fun sort of play discussion with me. So when we're out in the real world with the other normals, right?
Mm-hmm.
And conversations start, and you can see, I don't know if you, and I'm sure you must experience this. Like you can see that like different people are in different places in their journeys. And like you can kind of see
Oh
like,
yeah.
okay, well, I see where your programming is coming from. And I can, and then you sort of, I don't know if you experience this, but I get a bit like, I don't know how to have a conversation with all of you necessarily, right? Like I know where I'm at, and I want to say a lot of things that are going to sound very silly to all of you, but I
Yeah.
don't like, I'm not sure that you can necessarily hear that. And so sometimes I'm in situations like that and I sort of clam up, like, and that's when I kind of bring out the funny, or I bring out the silly, or I just say something ridiculous, because I'm like, okay, well, let's break up this sort of conversation that doesn't resonate with where I am in my journey, that I can see that's where they all are. Like, can I shift it in a different way into something fun? I don't know. Do you sort of run into that when you're, interacting, not
Yeah.
necessarily with clients and like-minded people, but just out in the world?
Yeah. It was a couple of weeks ago actually. Me and my husband went to like a party per se. It was a bonfire. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was meeting new people, and they were asking me, what do I do for work and stuff like that. And of course I have a 9 to 5 job, but I do energy work
Mm-hmm.
and, conscious expansion, and teaching on, after work and on weekends. And so I kind of explained that, and it was like dead silent. Whenever I was saying like energy work and like
Yeah,
psychic development and stuff like that, and they were just kind of like,
you
and I'm
do.
like, I
You
help
what?
people. And then I was like, oh crap, I have to like kind of twist the way I say this. And I'm like, I help people process trauma and work through their emotions. And they're like, oh, okay. So like a therapist. And I'm like, yeah.
Sort of like, yeah, I can, yeah, no, I get it. Like I can get with that. Yeah. But that is,
Um,
it's interesting when you do have to try to, again, it's like meeting people where they are on their level, right?
yeah. Yeah,
And it gets a little awkward sometimes.
it does. And it just reminds you of like where we're all at, just on different levels of reality, conscious expansion. And it's, I kind of compare it to of just like, if you want to talk about like business or things like that.
Oop. There you
Oh, there we
go.
go.
You're good.
Technology. Gotta
I
love it.
know. It's all right. You gotta, sometimes I gotta think some of those things. Sources be playing along and being a little funny somehow. I may not necessarily understand the joke, right?
Yep.
And sometimes
Yep.
I don't. A
We
lot, I
just
feel
gotta
like a
roll
lot of
with it.
times that happens. Yeah, you just gotta roll.
So,
So
uh, go ahead.
you were saying in business.
Oh, yeah, it's kind of like the way I look at it in business. If maybe you can relate of like when you market your business per se, you're the way that you take that approach, you're going to be hitting people on all different levels of their consciousness. So, like if I'm going to be marketing like a level 1 Reiki course as opposed to a level 3, or the way in which I market is going to be very beginner-ish for people who are just learning about the energy. So it's kind of like, what view are you going to take to meet people where they're at their consciousness? So it's kind of the same way when you teach, you have to meet the individual where they're at. And that's what really will test you as a teacher, or even an energy worker to help people, is how can you meet somebody at their level of consciousness and still deliver the teaching or the message as how they can accept it, right? As
Right.
how the mind can accept it or they can understand it from their level. So you have to be able to go from somebody who knows absolutely nothing about it to somebody who might be on your level or even above your level.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really like a skill. And honestly, like every new individual that I meet that I talk about this stuff with, or every new client, like I learned something new about myself and about the situation. So it's kind of like, nobody's ever in your reality by coincidence. There's always
Mm-hmm.
something to learn and gain. Um, and that's the way I look at these situations too. So it is kind of like neat and fun to see where everybody's at in their journey and just kind of like different perspectives. And it is really like, I mean, if you think about it, it's like a video game.
I
It is
really,
fun.
I do. That's where I am again, practicing being at a little bit more. Like, remind yourself that this is an illusion, that like Earth School being a human is the universe's most advanced VR, you know, like
Yes.
this is the best virtual reality there could be. You get to be a human in this world and like have all the sensory, experiences and all the interactions with people. And that is sometimes it's helpful, but then sometimes it's you get to a place where you sort of are disengaged a little bit. I don't know if you experience that yourself, where, and I think that happens to me sometimes. And I don't know if it's maybe a sort of the game I play with myself to like help myself not freak out so much about little things or what have you. But I start doing that, like what you talked about, stopping the loops or the patterns. Sometimes I'll do like, okay, my avatar is upset about this, or my avatar is like having a tantrum, kind of thing.
Like
Like
pulling yourself from
like
like
disengage
above
a
this.
little. Yeah, and kind of, yeah, again, right, be above the scene and sort of be the observer of the scene. But at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, I recognize, and I'll have those moments again too. Well, I'll do that and I'll think, okay, but I came here for this. Like
Yeah.
I signed up for this class. I'm
Yeah.
supposed to be feeling the emotions, even if I don't like them necessarily, you know?
Exactly. And that's where I see a lot too in the spiritual community of like everyone's like, gosh dang, this human experience. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's heavy, it's hard, all these things. And I'm just like, but we can't have this anywhere else. We seriously cannot. And this is the beauty of the human experience, is we get to feel these lower level frequencies. And they're, like I said before, they're neither good or bad. Energy is just energy.
Mm-hmm.
It's whatever you determine it to be. So if you want it to be heavy and hard and crappy, and this human experience is just basically crap, then it will be.
Mm-hmm.
But you can also see it as, we're here to create and learn something about ourselves and have a human experience of where we get to actually create physical, like, ideas, bring, ideas into physical form, create it with our hands. Like, we can't do that in the higher realms, because the higher that we get, we're just going more into light and the non-physical. And when we think things, I mean, it already is. Like, thought
And
is,
right, you
you think
understand. There it is. You understand how things
mm-hmm.
manifest, and so
And
there's a lot less surprise involved, right? And I'm trying
yeah,
to practice that, to look at it more as, you like puzzles, and I do. Like, you like a puzzle, you like a mystery. Who doesn't love a good mystery and
yeah,
following threads of where something goes? And that's what this is meant to be. You're supposed to be following along and like, okay, where's this going to go? What's going to happen? What new thing can I find? What new key to a new door? And like, yes, sometimes I lock myself in the escape room and I have a little freak out about it. But it's like, but you're supposed to have fun figuring out getting your way
yeah.
back out again.
And that's the journey of life, the manifestation that is your life. I mean, yeah, we're here to create our story, however which way we want it to go. And that's just, oh wait, I think it froze again. Dang it.
Oh, you're good. It's all right. It'll be a running theme. I can, like, I can either edit it out, or I can just like edit out the silent bits and leave it in. That, like, listen,
This just
sometimes
happened.
this be how it is.
Yeah,
It's just a part of life.
technology.
It's,
But all these freaking planetary alignments, the moons and the eclipses, are just jacking with stuff.
I know. It's interesting. It's not the only time though. There have been different guests I've had who are energy workers, that sometimes there is a glitch that happens. Like, I couldn't even use my microphone with one person. Like, it just wasn't working. It was so weird. Yeah. So I kind of think, sometimes I do think it's like, we are all conduits of energy. So maybe
We are.
sometimes we're a little bit too electric for technology to, deal with it. And we can
It
just
could
pat
be.
ourselves on the back and feel good about that.
Exactly.
Okay.
But yeah, like I think I was saying something along the lines of, just like, our life is a manifestation. Like, we came here to create, and that's how I like to view the human experience. It's just an evolution of us basically figuring out who we are as this character, this avatar, and to expand ourselves and therefore the universe, the reaching new states of love and wisdom. What can we create? And honestly, we're limitless. We're only as limited as, the thoughts that we have about ourselves, right? We create our own box of reality. So
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be constantly, like, going through life, just creating, bigger boxes of reality, pushing past limiting beliefs and just making new ones. And you can go as far as you want to go with it. I mean, your life is what you want it to be. Now, some people will take it as far as, like, creating, whatever, like being millionaires, or like whatever their dream is that they want to. And some people, like, their dream is just to be like a mom, you know what I mean, and provide for their family. So it's really like, what do you want out of life? What do you think you're capable of? And that's what you can create. It's just, whenever people you find, when people get in those dark states and actually turn to energy work, or one of my clients that I have and stuff like that, it's just, they forget their power, and they forget that, these lower level frequencies are just misalignments and thought, that they can't achieve what they want out of life, that it's a misalignment from love. So it's just bringing them back to the remembering that they always had this power, that, these thoughts aren't them, that they can achieve what they want to achieve. And then you just help the individual, however which way you need to get to where they want to go. So that's kind of what I picture
It's
creating
funny.
and then energy work.
Like you were saying that, and what came up for me in my mind was Thomas Edison. I didn't fail. I just found a
Promise
thousand.
who?
Thomas Edison. I didn't fail. I just found 1,000 ways not to make a light bulb. There she is.
Oh my gosh. There we
It,
go. It
you're
actually
good.
shut
Weird.
I
We're
know.
having we're Thomas Edison got called in and was like, "Don't be talking about me and my inventions." You just shut us right down. Sorry,
Exactly.
Tommy. Sorry so much. But I really do appreciate that sentiment, and it's something that again in my recently, which is probably why we've connected and hooked up together, because this is like that's the next step. That's the next person that you need to talk to. Is
Uh-huh.
and I don't know again if you listen to like 𝓕𝓻𝓪𝓸𝓭𝓬 who channels Bashar, but
Uh,
he
yeah, yeah. I like him.
yeah, one of the things he says is that it's such a gift to you that like humans don't remember or understand that life is essentially meaningless, and that is a gift because you get to assign meaning that you prefer to it, right?
Yes. Yep.
And it's there, but you get caught in those old loops of, well, but the things that I was taught, those are true, and this thing that I'm perceiving in a certain way, or if someone's behaving in a certain way towards me, that it must mean this or that thing. And it's like, well, it only means what you decide it means. And
Mm-hmm.
that should be like, that's meant to be something empowering. It's not meant to be something that's scary and like, well, I'm creating poorly, or I'm vibrating in the wrong way, or I'm somehow not doing this human experience correctly, right? But there is no correct way to do it. Is that
Exactly. There's only your way to do it. And that's where like people can get caught in fear or the traps of, they're thinking that something's either wrong or something's evil or things of that nature. And honestly, like you said, life really has no meaning other than what you assign it to be. And that's just us as humans. That's our nature. We want to assign logic to
mm-hmm.
the things that we feel. We want to have explanation to the reasons why we're thinking the way we are and we're feeling the way that we are. And whatever we can convince ourselves of why it is we're feeling that way, that's our truth. Like, and I've always thought about this as well too, of like people trying to find the root cause of like their childhood
Mm-hmm.
traumas, or why am I this way, like what trauma did I have as a child, that is causing so much issues right now in my current life. Does it really matter that much? Like, I think there's a point of maybe it helps you understand a little bit better, but your dis-ease in the moment of how you feel is sign enough to tell you that just something's off. And do you really have to go back to whatever it is in your childhood to figure out the reason why you're off now to accept it? Or can you just accept how you are now and just be like, well, this is the way I'm feeling. I'm not quite sure why it is. If you want to
Mm-hmm.
tell yourself a story of, oh, this happened to me when I was a child, like this is why I am the way that I am, then you have to self-accept it and still process the emotions. But does that all really matter? Do you have to go back to the
Mm-hmm.
root issue other than just giving it light and acknowledging it in the moment and then moving on from it? You know what I mean? So it
I
really, like what we tell ourselves. I mean, it could be a childhood issue, it could be something that happened to us last week, or it could be a past life issue. It's whatever we accept or can process or logically of why we're feeling the way that we are and can make sense of it to then process it and move on. You know what I mean?
I'm with you on that 100%. I do appreciate what you've been saying too about like the healing trap, right? And I think this is a big part of it too. This idea of, past traumas, or it's because of something that happened. Well, that's a story that you keep telling yourself. No one's telling you
Mhm.
that story but you, right?
Exactly.
And yeah, sure, there's people out there who say that you should find these childhood traumas or do whatever. You can do the hypnosis for past lives, whatever. I always say simultaneous lives because everything is here and now, right? This is
Yes.
human linear time is something that becomes very murky for me when I start thinking about consciousness, right? Like they don't.
Oh, we could get on a whole other thing with past lives and twin flames and all of that. Oof, that's a
And
big one.
right, and but even things like that, like the twin flame thing of like people looking for soulmates and this and that, and yes, we're all looking for connection, right? But I am
Mhm.
at that point where I recognize the connection that I really want is a connection to my true self. And once I have that, the connection that I have to everything, everyone else, that's when that becomes more fruitful, more enjoyable, more of the things that I prefer, right?
Yes, yes.
So practicing remembering that, right? Like even just that part, like just practicing remembering that is such a big part of like where I am right now. Just I know I can create things. I can look at certain things that have happened and say I did create that. I know I did that. But again, it's that duality of okay, but then here I am in these feelings I don't want. What's coming from this? But you don't
Mhm.
have to get stuck in that. And that I keep trying to remind myself too. Again, I'm practicing when you get in those loops and when you have those emotions, remind yourself there's nothing serious going on here. We're all here to play this game. There's,
Yeah.
the
It's just part
solutions
of
are
it.
available. Right.
It's just part of it. And the way that I look at it is like, I mean, I think you said it before, is we are the conduit. I mean, we are the bridge between
Mm-hmm.
heaven and earth. So if you think about it, like this body is just a vessel. Its job is
Mm-hmm.
to harness energy, the energy that is you, your soul, being streamed into this body for a human experience. Now, the upper chakras, which are your spiritual chakras, they're going to be streaming in more of the cosmic energies, more of the spiritual energies, and our lower chakras, they're what is going to be streaming in the earthly energies, as you can think of it more as the ancestral. So everything to do with the human existence. And
Mm-hmm.
so the heart is actually the thing to bridge those together. We call it the portal of God. That's actually where I've actually heard the voice of God come through. And then those energies actually give you the human experience. So this is how you are both the light and the dark, because those lower level frequencies that we just want to, associate with a human experience, they allow us to experience here. So what we're doing is just transcending those to higher frequencies, higher perception shifts of how we view the world, and we create from, that point of being. So whatever energy that you're in and you take action upon that, it's going to be what you create in your life. It's going to be what you see in your life. So whenever you can remember your truth, or the rejoining of God, or the seeing the world through the eyes of love or the eyes of God, um, then that's all you're going to see in everybody else too. So it's like the new earth starts with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you shift there, everybody else shifts there. So like if you are 5D consciousness shifted to earth, see things from a higher perception shift. When you look at somebody else and you see instead of seeing, somebody actually say have jealousy towards you or something like that, or they're taking at lower level action, you don't really see it as them harming you, or that they're trying to hurt you or anything like that, because that's a lower level way of viewing the world. You
Right.
actually see through the eyes of love, and you just see like somebody's taking action, and releasing energy that that they are feeling in the moment. It's truly not who they are, right?
Oh, Source is playing a funny little game again, and we have a little pause. There you are. You're good.
So it's kind of like everything starts within you. So like when we that's and I think Bashar talks about this too, of like shifting earths and realities.
Right.
It
You don't.
starts with you. We don't go
Right.
any
You don't change the world. You change yourself, and then you're vibrating with the world that fits with where you have changed yourself to. Right.
exactly. And I feel like if we can get enough people to be able to see higher perception shifts and change the world, their world on the inside, I think eventually when enough of us humans hold this frequency, it's like anything else with manifestation, like frequency attracts like frequency. We're then going to be able to see the collective consciousness change, and therefore our physical world start to change. So then we're going to see shifts in man's evolution. So more peace, more advances in technology, more things to actually help our world grow and expand rather than what we're seeing right now in the world. Because anything physical that's showing up is truly a manifestation of what we are spiritually, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
so the fact that the world is kind of on fire, like literally on fire in so many places, it's like,
yeah,
Gaia is her own consciousness entity as well, like we are a part of the organism that is this planet. So
yes,
it is very much affected by our frequencies, and that the only frequency you really have control over is your own. So if you want to shift it, you have to shift yourself. And, that is something that's exciting to think about for me. The idea that because we're in a space where so many more people are interested in this information, so many more people are open to learning and to receiving the messages, so many more people are out there creating content like this, that we're in a space where manifesting and creating the kind of life you prefer is generally becoming easier because so many more people are believing it. So that's for me, that's something where like I find a lot of hope. Again, we're transitioning out of 9 to 5 and into self-employment is how I like to speak it into the universe, right? And but I do like I find hope, and I find sort of, when you were in the moments when you need a little bit of comfort, like I do take comfort in that idea that there are so many more people now. I'm vibrating in a world where this is more common, and because I'm vibrating in that world where this is more common, for me to create the life that I do prefer is easier because the frequencies are generally higher, right? I honestly think there might be some amount of like somebody's telling me I need to drink more water. They're like, we're going to have a pause here because you're not hydrating enough. Okay, I'm sorry.
That's awesome.
I think that's entirely possible. So I'm drinking my water. Spirit, guides, I'm trying. I know. I got to hydrate.
I hear you. Water is consciousness.
It is. That is something that I do like. Do you do any kind of work or play with that? So the idea of sort of infusing water with positive emotions, with the self-love kind of things. Like, can you talk about like what kind of processes you use for that?
Yeah. So like with BQH especially, we do what we call water alchemy. So it's basically, have you ever heard of, and I think a lot of people have, a Dr. Emoto's study?
Yes, yes, on water.
Yes, I have that incorporated in my Reiki courses because I think it's really important to understand how everything is frequency and how actually water can hold a vibration or a frequency, and even with thoughts, words and thoughts, right? So I like to use that as like tools. So like with BQH sessions, I'll take moon water if you make moon water, set water out the full moon, then speak affirmations to it, just positive affirmations, or like I'll write down certain words and I'll put them on the bottle of the water. And then I'll speak intentions to it, and then I'll have my client actually drink it before a session, and I'll drink it as well too. So then it will help shift our biology to help bring in those energies that we want for this session. So you can use it as tools like that. I use it just in my own life of, drinking moon water and energy, and then help to try and manifest. But it's also just it's really important for people to understand how their thoughts affect their biology as well too, because the human body is made up of 70% water. So
right, like we are full water. So if your thoughts can change the way that water crystallizes and shapes itself, then it's absolutely affecting your body.
Oh yeah, and I mean that's what disease is. All disease is just an energetic imbalance within the body, and the
Hmm.
body's just trying to show you where out of alignment you're at with your soul, which is love, right?
Hmm.
So it's nothing bad. Like all disease just vibrates a certain frequency because it's just energy
Hmm.
that's just stuck in the body, right? Because of thoughts that are on repeat that are out of alignment with love. And you just have to rewire those thoughts. I know easier said than done, don't get me
Hmm.
wrong, because I don't want to, because, when you talk about disease and energy, people kind of get a little bit like, a
People
little
can,
defensive.
yeah, no, I understand that because I know that people feel like it's blameful, like you made
Yes.
yourself sick. And it's like it's not a blameful situation. It's again,
No.
it's a perception. Don't look at it as I screwed it up again.
Yeah,
Look at it as I have the power to shift this, right?
exactly.
And so
Exactly.
again, that's such a thing for me. Like keep reminding myself, practice reminding you have the power to shift this.
Hmm.
And it's a process. We all have our days, we all have our moments. I've said before, it's like, yeah, I can speak to all of these things sometimes far better than I am able to do them you know
Exactly. And it's just because of our programming and, with the victim, I say the victim mindset, but, uh, people find that, if you think of like energy and disease and stuff like that, people might think that, oh, it's my fault the way that I was thinking, or,
right.
stuff like that. What I like to remind people of is it's not your fault that things have happened to you. It's not your fault the way that you're thinking, acting, feeling, but it is your responsibility to fix it. And
Right.
that's where it's kind of like it's relieving that lower level frequency of like, gosh, this is my fault. Like, I can't believe I'm thinking the way I am. And then it
Hmm.
brings you like down and stuck in the middle of the crap show, pretty much.
Right, yeah.
Um, so it's just, I think it just has a lot to do with our programming and how, and I know for me, I kind of like go back to my programming of the Christian faith almost of like
Hmm.
because things are so foreign to how I was taught,
Right.
growing up, I didn't know anything about energy work. I thought that, God was something outside of myself. I thought Jesus had superpowers that he could heal, people just from
Hmm.
his touch, when honestly it was the faith that Jesus was restoring and people bringing them back in touch with their power. He was the channel for
Right.
their faith to be restored because they believed in him.
This is working out for us in an interesting way.
I don't know where it cut me off at, but
No, I do appreciate what you're saying, and the it's difficult sometimes because, like, I know you talk about like victim mentality and like the taking responsibility more for yourself and an empower from a place of empowerment.
mm-hmm.
And I again, I had that same background of the Christian background too, of like, God and Jesus are people looking at you with judgment. You're bad. You're not doing this right. And you have to, come to me and bow down and ask me to forgive you for being so terrible. That guilt
Yeah,
and that shame. And it is something that, again, I do like to remind myself or practice thinking about, Jesus, the way, like you said, his knowingness of your source energy and the fact that you are so attached to it in the same way that he is. Like, he was just the dominant vibration in the room, right? He was
yes,
just the
yeah,
dominant consciousness in the room, and you couldn't help but align to that frequency because he was the
exactly.
dominant frequency. And that is something that I honestly in the last couple of weeks have been saying to myself when I get into a situation where I'm like, I can sense myself aligning to external frequencies, to other people's emotions, or, where they are. And I remind
Mm-hmm.
myself, no, I want to be the dominant frequency in the room. I want my true self
Exactly.
to be the dominant frequency that I am working with as I'm moving throughout my life. Right.
Yes. And that's what I like to say of like, when people are like, well, what do you do when somebody like takes your energy from you and, like setting boundaries or things like that. And I'm like, Don't be the person that gives your energy away. Be the person that brings up somebody else's energy, right? Be that
Right.
dominant energy, because that's what happens when you vibrate high. It's going to bring somebody else's energy up. And that's how healing honestly works, especially with like Reiki, it's
Hmm.
resonant. It's automatically somebody's energy field is being brought up to match yours. So that's how healing essentially works. And then it hits that person wherever they need to in the moment of what they need to heal.
Right. And it's so fun for me to kind of get into like the nuts and bolts, sort of like the really deep wooey woo stuff of this, you
Oh,
know,
yes.
when you're really, because I do think of that sometimes, for myself, for example, I think to myself sometimes, reaching out to like a healer or something like that, and I'm like, I'm gonna reach out to someone because there's something that's telling me that I am somehow not listening to my inner being, and I need you and your inner being to like come over here and help, ego self release some resistance so that I can get to the healing that my inner being is actually giving me, right?
Mhm.
That like
Yeah,
you and your inner being and your energy are just helping to sort of clear the things that are blocking human me,
yeah,
that human me is using
exactly.
to block myself.
Yeah. And that's where like we want to say to like I always tell my clients or my students or whatever that like I am truly not the healer, you are the healer. I am just reminding you of your power, and my energy is hitting you in a way that it needs to shift the energy within you. So you're essentially like healing yourself. The body is that intelligent to do what it needs to do.
Right.
Right. So it's just like I'm just being the channel for everything to take place. And that is what, a healer's job essentially is to do. The soul or the individual is honestly going to get whatever healing out of the session that they want. So essentially, if somebody's going in and they're skeptical, or they're going into a healing session of like, this is woo woo, I'm going to prove that this is woo woo, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
that's what they're going to get out of it, because that was their intention, right? The mind wants to basically create a reality in which it's right? So
Yeah.
it
And
that's
that
what.
it fascinates me too when you even look at it in the terms of like modern medicine, if it's not any different than like a placebo effect, right? Like everything in life is a placebo effect. So,
Exactly.
if you're going to believe that the medical doctor is going to give you pills that'll be helpful to you in more ways than this will, then it will, because you believe that. But if you don't have faith in medicine like that, and you can go to these to energy workers and you can go into these other alternatives, it's like, what story resonates with you and your inner being most that will help you to attach to that in a way that you can allow the healing that your body naturally wants to do. Sorry, I lost you again for a second. Stand by. We're good. You got it.
Here, you're gonna have a lot of editing to do here.
That's all right. It's totally fine. It'll be a fun little thing that we'll just kind of like, I'll edit out the silent bits, but you know what? We'll just keep it in as a funny little bit. I don't know what, I don't know what, again, I don't get the joke yet, source, but okay. We're here.
um,
We're with it.
but essentially, yes, faith is everything. Faith is honestly, it creates the faith that you have in yourself, and whatever you want to give it to in life is the same faith that you have in spirit source. It's one and the same.
Hmm.
Or the placebo, as Dr. Joe Dispenza would say.
Yes. And I love his work. That's a big thing for me too. Yes. Dr. Joe Dispenza. Such
He was
a,
a part of my spiritual awakening when I first started getting into this work. I think my first book that I read was Becoming Supernatural.
okay.
With That was a really good one. It was about how like your thoughts create kind of like your thoughts and energy, and how it works with the body.
Hmm.
So that one was really good. But I
I,
love his.
I love that work. And I do love that, again, the sort of blending of like science and spirituality. And I love that that is happening more often now, so much more often, than ever before, that people are starting to see the
Yeah.
overlap, right? The connectivity between them, that they're not separate
Mhm.
things. It's,
No. It's free.
Spirituality is like the science that scientists don't have a mathematical formula for yet.
Exactly, the phenomena that is creation, that is us existing here. Science is like, I like to call it like science is the explanation of creation, and
Mm-hmm.
spirituality is like your personal relationship with that creation.
I
So
like that.
yeah, it's kind of like, spirituality is your unique relationship with creation
Mm-hmm.
that we are.
I love it. And it's so true. And I think that's really honestly, again, that's why we've connected because that's the space that I'm in, that it's all about really aligning with your inner energy, your source energy, your signature frequency, right? Because
Mhm.
that is part of what you came here to do, was to remember what that was and to follow the things that you are called to do by that frequency,
Yeah,
right? And I think that's
exactly.
something too that, and maybe you probably experience this, not everyone in your life necessarily understands, well, why can't you just work a regular 9 to 5 job every day and be happy with that, and not have to be seeking something else outside of it, and not have to be, because I'm called to do it. It's what I am called to do.
You
I
are. It's like you feel that spark inside of you, that God spark. It's that life. And the thought, and this is where like you'll find what your purpose is in life, is feeling into the thoughts or the ideas that spirit gifts you with, right? And that's where
Mhm.
you want to create from. So me thinking that of like just spending the rest of my life working a 9 to 5 and doing that regular programming of, coming home every day and just like doing housework, or, living more of
Right.
the normal life, you want to
Mm-hmm.
call it, that feels very heavy to my soul. That feels very like I feel trapped. And
Yes.
that's not what spirit feels like to me. Spirit feels like I want freedom. I want creation. I want love. I want to add value to people's lives.
Right.
So where I find that is like doing this type of work, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like, that is your sign of what is your purpose. I find that where you add value to yourself and to other people's lives, that should be part of your purpose. It's your passion. It's being the channel for creativity and love and impacting other people. And, if I can't remember what it's called, I think it's called Ikigai or something like that. Ikigai. I'll
I
have
think
to
I know
like,
what you're talking about. I don't.
it's basically like an Eastern concept of like everybody has this, and it is basically your soul's purpose. And if you can
Mm-hmm.
find something that lights your soul on fire, which is being the channel for love, creativity, um, passion, and if you can channel that in a way that you can add value to people's lives, to where like you can make it into a job. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And then
Exactly.
you can do it for it supports you, right? So then
That
it just
that is absolutely a big part, again, also of where I'm at. The again, if I it's building my faith that those things that give me joy are meant to be what supports me, not the thing that I'm told I'm supposed to do, to like 9 to 5 to get your income, to pay your bills and meet your needs. Like, your true self knows how to meet your needs far better than any job you can attach yourself to, right?
exactly.
So
And
having that faith that those things will come, just keep doing the things that you enjoy doing, and yes, sometimes you have to do these things that you think are not aligned to you on the,
yeah,
as your day to day. But then I also have to think to myself too, is there something in that that is aligned to me that I'm missing, that I'm not seeing that perspective of it?
um I feel like we're going through what we're going through in the moment for a reason. I feel like there are aspects, the way I look at my 9 to 5 is that, I can choose to show up every day as God, and see light and love in this situation. And I can choose to actually see how this job is bettering me. What
Mm-hmm.
skill sets can I take from this job that I'm in right now, even though I don't feel like it is my purpose, that I have
Right.
a greater calling? Where can I find skills that can add to my purpose, right? Where can I find skills that build me, in my purpose? So, like for me, I do a lot, like I do a lot of like relationships with people. I do a lot of teaching actually and training in my job. I do a lot of public speaking. So these are things that actually help me and like communications and stuff, and also help me outside in my passions because I teach, I create programs, I
Mm-hmm.
write, things of that nature. So you kind of see where these things can help build you
Mm-hmm.
until you can make that full transition. And I do fully believe that, if you look at manifestation and us being, we're executing our passions. So we're being the channel of love. And if you think of the frequency and the law of attraction, like frequencies attract like frequencies. So if you're executing your soul's purpose and you're radiating a high frequency, like money is the same frequency, abundance, love, it's very
Right.
much similar. So
Mm-hmm.
it's naturally designed that way that when you radiate your soul's purpose, money is going to be attracted to you. Like it, because money is a resource.
Right.
You need to, it's not necessarily like, it's not just, to have money to spend on nice things. Like, yes, we do, like, that's nice and all, but money supports you and being able to add more value to other people's lives. So it's just a constant cycle.
Right.
So I feel like
Exactly.
universally designed that way of when you're executing your soul's purpose, money will become attracted to you. It's just going to naturally happen that way, and we have to just hold that faith in it. But I feel like having that faith and holding it and just keeping on doing the things that are right, listening to your intuition, pushing past limiting beliefs, pushing yourself to grow, it's going to happen one day. And you're going
Mm-hmm.
to sit back and look at and just be like, holy crap, like, how did I end up here? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because if you even look back to where you started, however many years ago, like, how much have you grown since then? You know what I mean?
And
And
that
we,
is more, again, the perspective. You have to shift your perspective not to where I'm not at yet, but look at
yeah.
how far I've come from where I
Mhm.
have been. And, that is, again, something I'm practicing doing, being like, you're really in a better place of understanding your own vibration and taking responsibility for your own vibration and not like projecting that onto other people. There's
Mhm.
I think sometimes as humans, we think that every revelation or shift or change has to be something like big and epic and crazy and wild. And, you
Yeah.
can't sort of look back and see. And I do that for myself a lot. I look back and I see the dominoes that fell. Like, this is how this happened and that happened that way. And, and then sometimes you get to that place of, okay, well, then why now? Why here? What next? And again, that's where that faith comes in of, well, it's happened the way that it's happened thus far, so what makes you think that it's not going to continue to show you and light the way?
Yeah, it's having faith in yourself. Like I said before, the faith that you have in yourself is the same faith that you have in spirit. Like you're gonna get to where you want to go. You just have to trust the process. And when you have that faith, it brings a sort of comfort to you that it's gonna happen. It's that inner knowing, right? That faith
Mm-hmm.
is that inner knowing, it's that belief. Um, and when you have that, you can sit where you're at comfortably and at peace and at ease, and therefore you're more open to receive the gifts because there's not that resistance. Because when you think
Mm-hmm.
of where you're, where you want to be, and you're like, you have this vision, and this is, I get caught in this trap too of
Mm-hmm.
this huge vision of what you want and where you can see it and feel it, and you're like, gosh, I can't wait to get there, but I'm not there, and it's frustrating, and then therefore it creates a resistance. So you have to bring yourself back to the faith that I know that this is going to happen, and I don't care however which way it's going to happen, even because we don't exactly know how things are going to play out. The universe
Right.
ultimately knows how it's all going to play out. So it's that faith and that trust that you have in yourself and therefore the universe, that no matter what, you're going to get there because you will. Like, there's no failure. There's no way you cannot get there unless you just choose not to, you
And
know?
that's when I'm in those sort of lower level vibrations. That's something that I have been saying to myself, that it doesn't matter that you're in that space about this right now, because it doesn't change the doneness of the things that you've already created in your imagination. The vision that I have for where I want to go is completed, right? Like there is a level on which it is already completed. So
Yes.
to what degree am I allowing myself to connect up with it? And
Yeah.
when I am in a place of resistance and I am not connecting up with it, it doesn't matter. It doesn't change that it's still there. Like it's there. I'm not like changing it's not moving away from me. It's not dissolving somehow. It's still there. That vision is there and it is calling me. And I know that it's calling me. It's,
Yeah.
and being in a space where I'm not kicking myself so often, for when that's where I'm practicing again being just stop kicking yourself when you're not exactly where you need to be or think you need to be.
Exactly. We're always right where we're supposed to be. And it's comforting to know that if it's meant for you, like you're going to get it. You know what I mean? You will never not get what is not meant for you, if that makes sense. So it's just
Yeah,
process.
that's a place that I find myself too of remembering if the universe didn't already have it created for me, I would not have manifested the thought. Like that's something I keep telling myself lately too. The thought and the dream, those are manifestations too, right? Like
Yes.
that's the first sign of the call that it's done,
Yeah.
right? So if you have the thought, it's because okay, yeah, that's where you're supposed to go. Like take that thought and that imaginative scene that you're inspired to think of, take that as a manifestation.
Yeah.
It might not be the solid things in this plane that we think of as being manifestations, right? But if you redefine it that way for yourself, then you can start to understand, okay, that means that I am on my way to that because I had that thought, that inspiration came to me, I received it. So I am in a space of creating that. I love it. And after, what would be kind of fun is if I would put some little commercial breaks in here of like, no, legit, I have for my fictional podcast that I write where I am trying to sort of incorporate a lot of these ideas. I have some fake ads that I wrote for like amnesia, like abductee amnesia serum. If you've been abducted by aliens, there's a serum you can take that'll make you forget, you know, very
That's
silly
awesome.
things so maybe I can insert some like pretend ads in here or something.
That would be funny.
Bring in the funny because it helps. I think it does.
It does. It does. That's why I make that content.
And I love it. I do love it so much. It's one of those things that if I can giggle at myself about this whole spiritual journey, especially when I'm in moments of, man, why am I doing this to myself again? Or why did I do this human thing to myself? Why did I sign up for this? You know,
Yeah.
it is
It
good to find something to giggle about.
it is. Comedy is definitely a healing aspect.
And that's
Uh,
I know there has to be a way to like merge comedy and spirituality in a way that's helpful for people. There you are. Another ad break.
another ad. Let me see here. There we go.
You're
But yeah,
good.
I don't know where we cut off at. I think it was
Just the merging of comedy and spirituality. I do think that I'm interested in that. I think there's a space for that, that there's a space to create something that will be very helpful to people, in merging those ideas instead of making everything, like you said, not taking things so seriously.
it come like I think people can relate to it, or it's a lot easier to process or accept it
Mm-hmm.
almost. If you can make content that is relatable or that is funny or entertaining to watch, as opposed to just like some of the heavier stuff or like the teaching aspect of it. Like some people are, it's not as entertaining to watch, or some people might scroll just right past it because that's not really what they're after. You know what I mean?
We're all
So
looking
it's
to feel good. We're all looking to feel
yeah,
better, and if you can find a way to make this spiritual journey stuff something that is again empowering and something you feel good about instead of dark nights of the soul every other week kind of thing.
And it's what I've come to learn too of like when I connect to the higher realms and I want to call them like spirit guides or like angels and stuff like that. They're very playful, very, very playful. And like I said before, the message that I always get is us humans take life way too seriously. And
Mm-hmm.
if you think back of like, what are children? They're very playful, they're very imaginative, they're very innocent and loving and open. And that's really what spirit is, right? It's almost like a wondrous feeling and a passion for creativity and just being playful and
Mm-hmm.
curious about life. And that's where, like, if we are open to receive and actually experiment, on different concepts or ideas or, try new things like a child would, or approach things with wonder of like, I wonder what would happen if I did this.
Yes.
You can create a lot of neat things with that, right? You can learn a lot of cool things and it dissipates all resistance, all that fear, because we create that fear to actually break, through doing something new because it's scary to us.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just kind of like going back to being a child again. And honestly, children are our greatest teachers.
Right.
And that's why actually having children is so healing for people because it reminds them of the love that they once were, or that, if they lose touch with that inner child per se, it just reminds them of the imagination and the love that children really are, and
Mm-hmm.
that really what we are.
until
So
until we get a hold of them and teach them all the things that make them like us, right?
yes, exactly. The programming kicks in. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's no, I'm not someone who has I'm not a I don't have kids, and I don't feel like that's part of my mission or purpose. But
Mine.
but it is. I feel like, and maybe some of us are meant to sort of remember that without that impetus, and be able to sort of remind other people, like,
Yes.
again, the play. I love that. What happens if I do this?
Yeah.
You
It's
know?
actually called the wonder method. It's like, I wonder what would happen if I did this. It's actually like approaching things with a sense of wonder. And then
Mhm.
it just takes that fear into the what if, the possibility. So it transitions, transmutes that energy. So that's what I like to do whenever like I want to try new things. Or if I'm afraid to try new things, approach it with like, I wonder what would happen. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
You really don't know until you just do it.
I know. And I do love that. And I think I'll probably borrow that from you. I wonder what I could do today that would bring me closer to the things that I'm really dreaming about. I
Yeah.
wonder what I could receive today. What would happen if I would just go
What if
to
I
this
did,
place? Yeah.
you
What if
know,
I just did something different today?
just trying new things because like, doing new things creates new possibilities, new realities,
Hmm.
new ideas flowing. We have to break ourselves free from this cycle because I mean, to create new energy, you have to be new energy. So you're going to get to a certain point. I mean, even with business, and I talk about this too with some people that I do coaching with, energetically, they're trying to build their business. And it's kind of like, well, what are you doing now? So energetically, we have to make shifts somewhere. Either you have to do more or do something different, or like I said, try new things of like, where are you putting your energy into creating?
Hmm.
So if you want something new, you have to create something new or do something different. So, and
Right.
that's where the fear kind of comes in of like we get so stuck in the mundane and the comfort zone per se of the routines that we already have. If we want to take that next step, it's like we have to push ourselves outside of that box and try new things. And it's scary. It can be scary.
It is. I think for me, where I'm at, I'm in a space too of try thinking something like, I think I get very sort of stuck in the action oriented things of like human life, right? And I sort of tell myself that, I we get on those loops too of you're not doing enough or you're not trying hard enough and those kind of things. And it is supposed to be effortless and it is supposed to be fun. So I'm in a space of try thinking a different thought, try looking for a different thought or energy, like not necessarily looking for an action that's different, even though that can be helpful, but
Mhm.
what can I think about that is different? Like I was in a mood the other day and I just was like, what can I think about that's different than this? And it was jellyfish. So I looked up like videos about jellyfish and I watched like Nat Geo videos on YouTube about jellyfish information, and it did help for a hot second because I was just not thinking about I was just in it. Okay, like this is interesting. Jellyfish are pretty cool, you know.
Yeah.
So
Takes you
it
from,
get yourself out of, into any other mindset, essentially, right?
yeah. No, I totally get it. I get it. We can get caught in the trap and the heaviness and the not doing enough. And I call it the hustle culture.
Yes.
Um, it's I say deadly toxic. It's that constant feeling of never not, not ever doing enough or and that can wear you down quite a bit. It
Yeah.
burnout.
Hmm.
So it's just trying to get back into that flow state. Because I think that um whenever you do get caught in like the hustle culture and then burnout happens and stuff like that, it's just like reminding you of where out of alignment you're at with thought.
Hmm.
So like the not doing enough, not, stuff like that, it's going to create a resistance within you.
Hmm.
So it's not, that vibration is not realistic to hold. And that's where people find the burnout. So it's kind of like almost a combination of coming to an acceptance of there's going to be periods of your life where you're going to be focused more on work and going through the heavy doing, but coming into alignment of love and the reason why you're doing what you're doing to maybe complete a project or something of that nature.
Hmm.
But then also taking periods of rest and digest and kind of like recovery. So I never think that balance is being able to balance like the perfect pie chart, if you want to call it that, of
Yeah.
like family, spirituality, business, like relationships. It's going to look so different depending upon where you're at in your life, what season that you're in.
Hmm.
Sometimes work is the most important thing, and like you're meant to really like grind and build a foundation. And then later on, you can kind of like relax and maybe focus more on family. So it's just kind of it's an ebb and flow of energy, I feel like. But the hustle
Hmm.
culture, it can be a deadly thing and it can be self-defeating too. And I think that's where a lot of people will find that when they hit the burnout, they just think that, oh my gosh, this just isn't for me. This just, and they give up, something
Hmm.
along those lines. When really like it's just a misalignment in thought. And maybe sometimes you need to make tiny little tweaks to routines or things that you're doing to get to that next step. And it doesn't have to mean that this thing is not meant for you, right? It's
Right.
only not meant for you to tell yourself that it's not. So it's just alignment and thought.
It is. And
But
it's so much about just training your brain to think the thoughts that you prefer,
exactly.
training yourself. Think about the things that I prefer to see, and you will start seeing signs of those. I like to say signs of land, right? Like that you're
Yeah.
seeing things that show up that show you things you've been thinking about in a positive way, right? That, okay, that's the universe nodding to you. You can have that thing that you want. Keep going, keep thinking about
Yeah.
it.
Exactly. The science side behind that is called, I think it's the reticular activating system. So it's like when you decide you want to manifest something. So say like you
Mm-hmm.
want a certain car, and then all you can see are just that certain car that you want, right?
Yeah.
Driving. That's all you can see. And that is, I say, the breadcrumbs of the universe, or the universe meeting you halfway, is now
Mm-hmm.
that you've decided that you want this thing, it's going to be like, okay, here's your next step. Like, then you see the opportunity, but then you have to take the action to actually go through that doorway to then get to the next level of the video game, per se.
Right.
So you have to, like, when you make that decision to manifest or to do something, or that perception shift in thought, um, then you have to take the action to then create a higher level of reality. So it's kind of like a little bit of science and a little bit of woo woo of like, it's kind of like
Again,
people
they
are,
overlap.
Yeah, they get excited like, oh my gosh, like I wanted to manifest this thing and here's my sign or whatever. But it's really like your brain is just now trying to help you get what you want. And that's what we're
Right.
wired to do.
I
It's
love
really
that. I play that game with myself a lot. Did I intuitively think that that thing was coming, or did I create that? And it's like, well, it's both of them.
it's
You know,
both.
you created that and you intuitively noticed the signs that you were creating that, you know,
Exactly.
and
It's
that's again, that's how you got to try to make it fun and try
Mhm.
to, and I do that too with the universe, like, universe, show me a giraffe today, just silly things like that, show yourself that you can, like, you're a perfect manifester already. You manifest absolutely perfectly. It's what are you manifesting? And if you can get yourself into a space where you're not making such a big deal about all the things you try to manifest, because I do think that's true. Just being stuck in the idea of hustle culture or productivity is in itself a resistive state of
it,
being.
it
Yeah,
can.
and the actions that you're supposed to take, right, are going to be
Mhm.
actions that don't feel, it doesn't feel like action. It's effortless,
It's
right?
flow.
Right. And
State of flow.
so there is that for me too, that I keep saying, well, if it feels like something that's a chore, then obviously now is not the time to do it.
Yeah, it's either you have to get it's if it feels like a chore, it's either that it's kind of like where people say motivation is BS, it comes and it
Yeah.
goes. But I get that. So it's either you have to push through it, which it's going to be resistance. But ultimately, like taking action in the physical is probably one of the heaviest ways to manifest or the hardest sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's getting your mind into alignment with it. So if you're finding resistance, it's really shifting your perspective to or your mind to be in alignment with it, and that's where you get the flow coming in.
Mm-hmm.
So easier said than done, don't get me wrong, but
We're all practicing.
it's being a conscious creator in life. Really, everything, if you can get your mind right, it flows.
Right. If you can intend and hold that intention energetically,
Yes,
that's
that's the key is the whole
that is like, that's absolutely the key. That's absolutely where I'm at. Just being able to hold on to that vibration and that energy, but not in a way of again, that resistant feeling type way of, oh, if I let this go, it's all going to come away from me. Like, no, hold a
Mhm.
space for that energy to be.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And ultimately, like when I find that resistance, like I kind of said before, coming back to a space of self-love and acceptance, and like this is where I'm at, and ultimately where I'm at is where I'm always supposed to be.
Because there is
And just
only here and now. There is nowhere else to be.
exactly.
I like to tell myself that sometimes too. Like, there's nowhere else you need to be. There's now is
Only
all that is. So you're
you're
already where you
doing,
need to be.
yeah, you're already doing the things you need to do. Like you don't have to, like you're right where you're supposed to be. And then it just dissipates resistance. Like everything you think you should be doing, it just like all that resistance is gone. You
And
realize that you're right.
it's yeah, it's not about, oh, I got to figure out the right type of marketing. I got to figure out the right type of way to do this or no, the thing that is the right way for you is going to present itself.
Exactly.
Just be open to receiving it when it presents itself.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. It's
I love
beautiful.
it. It is. I've loved this conversation so much. I do so appreciate you being here.
Yeah.
Can you plug your stuff? Again, I'll put all your links and things in the description, but do plug your stuff, tell people where to find you and what any if
Yeah.
anything you have coming up.
Yeah, no, my Instagram, it's Andie, Andie, J_12. Um, but I have a website and it's AndreaJohnson'sJourney.com. I have all of my services listed on there. I do, online services as well too. But my classes, they're more, I do in-person classes, but I do offer online. So they're more for individual, but I will
Okay.
have one coming up for the end of the year and the beginning of the year. So I'll have to get my dates on that. But
Very
yeah,
cool.
that's essentially where you can find me. And then my YouTube channel, I'll send a link to that, and that's where you can find a lot of my teachings and conscious coffee talks is what I call it. So
I
a
do
lot of
love
conscious
those. I have been
education.
enjoying those ones.
They're therapeutic for myself.
And I think that's, a great part about all of it. Even this for me, I know that it helps me, but I always think someone out there watching has been in that space and understands what you're saying, and sharing that part of your journey and that part of your therapy process is going to be the thing that they needed to hear. And you never know when that's going to happen.
You never know. That was one thing that spirit or source, whatever you want to call it, how I know it's part of my purpose. They said to capture, your vibration and put it out in the world, and video and recording has been the way to do that, because it's going to preserve that vibration and people will watch it, it'll and heal them wherever they're at in their life, and it's there forever, or until the
Right.
platform is
Well, I mean, it really is there forever. The internet's kind of an interesting thing that way. Like you can always dig something up, right?
exactly.
So, well, thank you so much for being here. I've really enjoyed it. And I hope that you can come back sometime and we can do like another check-in and just like, let's see where we are in the journey now.
This was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for reaching out and connecting with me.
Yes. And thank you for joining me. I loved it. This was great.
Yeah, it totally lit my vibration up today. I needed
Yay!
this.
So excited. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Of course. We'll talk to you later.
Hi again, friends. Thanks so much for tuning in and watching this episode. I really hope you enjoyed that conversation with Andie Johnson. You can definitely check out all of her links in the description below, and do please go follow her on Instagram. Give yourself a giggle. If you'd like to support more of the Franki 411 podcast and also support my fictional podcast, The Adventures of 𝓕𝓻𝓪𝓷𝓭, you can support my Patreon. That's patreon.com/𝓕𝓻𝓪𝓷𝓭. And do check out all of the links below where you can find me online all over the place, creating all the things that are my highest joy in the moment to the best of my ability. Thank you very much, Bashar. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And until next time, much love to you, my earthbound and cosmic friends. Wherever you are out there, I hope you're doing well.